Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. This time we are going to be talking about Warcraft, Orcs and Humans. The story of Warcraft is fairly simple. Orcs came through a dimensional gate, invaded this country. You don't really know anything about the other countries within this world yet, but you know that orcs and humans exist. The canonical ending has the humans losing the war and the orcs overrunning the kingdom, and then continuing their invasion to the northern kingdom in the second game. You'll see a lot more happening in the second game when we eventually talk about that, especially as the lore kind of gets expanded from this first part. If you read the manual, you get told about a first incursion by the orcs that was largely disorganized, but they did almost overrun the country and destroy Stormwind Keep, but they were pushed back by knights as the humans started training soldiers and actually beating back the enemy. Then several years pass, the orcs kind of regroup, they gather their forces, and then they invade the country again. And we pick up in this game with this second incursion, and it's mostly a stalemate. In the Orc campaign, the Castle Stormwind ends up being sacked. There's also a bit about a civil war, which sees a new chieftain take charge. It's revealed that in the second game, you're playing as the character Orgrim Doomhammer, who was the champion in the first game. This really isn't all that important for this game because none of that is really made clear as you're playing it, at least from an Orc campaign. I played through the human campaign first, so there's a bit more from that campaign's story, at least in here. You have to kill an insane mage who's threatening to unleash demons on the world. You have to save Lothar, who's Azeroth's greatest champion at the time. And you have to basically drive the orcs out and destroy Blackrock Spire. It gets revealed that the king ends up being killed off by some half-orc diplomat-type person. It's a little confusing, but the king's dead, and your character ends up taking over after the whole war is finished. But you don't seal the Great Rift in this game, so it is brought up, or not really brought up, but you're assuming that there would be another invasion afterwards, or at least it's possible. This ending isn't canon to the games, so it's just kind of there because they have two campaigns, so they need to have an ending for both of them. It was kind of cool that you didn't know which ending was actually canon until the second game, so yeah, that's kind of fun. At least I think it is. This is just a fun story, and it got my imagination going a lot when I was a little kid. There were a lot of times when I would go off into the woods and sort of imagine myself in this game's world or playing some part of this game for real when I was just wandering around in the woods. It was kind of fun to do that, and it was one of the first games that really made me think that way, like taking my toys and putting them into the game's world. I also remember doing it with Dune 2 as well. That was another game that really caught on for me. Anyway, let's talk a little bit more about the graphics and the rest of the game. Warcraft has a number of flaws that would have been acceptable back in the day. Issuing commands on the fly can be really hard, and there are no naval or air units in the game. This is an early real-time strategy game, and it is fun to go back and see how far the genre has actually come. In retrospect, there aren't a whole lot of units that you can recruit in this game. When you compare it to something like Command & Conquer, it's kind of shockingly small to see what you actually have to work with in this game. The other races here, or at least the other races in the World of Warcraft game or in the second game, Those are not here, so you don't have elves, dwarves, trolls. You do have ogres, but you can't recruit them on your side. It's really exactly what the game says. It's just orcs and humans. Both sides have basically the same units. Both of them have a peasant, the orcs call them a peon. Both have a footman, the orcs call it a grunt. They both have a ranged unit, which is the archer, the orcs call it a spearman. You have the knight, which is your mounted cavalry. The orcs have a raider, which is the same. Both sides have a catapult, and then they both have 2 magic users. The humans have a priest and a conjurer. The orcs have a necrolyte and a warlock. Those units don't get upgraded in the same way that they would in the second game, so you can't upgrade your knight to a paladin or your archer to a ranger. You can improve their attack and defense, and then you can recruit additional spells for your magic users. A lot of the spells have more to do with summoning more creatures than they do with actually attacking. Some units that you can recruit, or at least summon, are the skeleton, scorpion, spider, water elemental, and demon. On top of the summoning spells, you also have healing and invisibility, as well as farseeing for your priest. These are similar to what the necrolyte can do. Instead of farseeing, they have dark vision, and instead of their invisibility, they have unholy armor. And then instead of healing, they can raise the dead. The conjurer can summon scorpions and water elementals, and then they have one attack spell called Rain of Fire, which is honestly more of a detriment to your own team than it is to the enemy. The orcs, on the other hand, their warlock has summoning for spiders and for demons, and then their attack spell is a lot easier to control and less of a hazard to your units. It's a cloud of poison that harms both units and buildings. If your units wander into the cloud of poison, they can get hurt, or if the enemy units are in there, they can get hurt. It's less destructive than the Rain of Fire, but it's easier to control wherever the hell it goes. It's a better spell than Rain of Fire, and I'm glad that thing got removed. Both sides have the same buildings, and yeah, they get separated out by basic and advanced, so both sides can build a farm, they can build a town hall, they both build a barracks and a lumber mill. Both have a blacksmith and a kennel, as well as a church and a tower. They are called different things, so the orcs will have a kennel instead of a stables, and then they'll have a temple instead of a church. Aside from that, everything else is the same. One thing I felt that was kind of sad is their farm isn't called a pig farm. I kind of liked that in the second game, but that's not here. When you're building your town, basically, it feels more like building an actual town, as you need roads. So you need to build the roads in order for your buildings to have a place to go. It's kind of annoying, if I'm being honest. And also, you can only select 4 units at a time when you're trying to move them. And that can be kind of a pain in the ass, because you need to hold down control in order to select 4 units. It's not like how the second game works. Overall, I like the gameplay in this quite a bit. It isn't as good as something like Command & Conquer, but it is a little better than Dune 2. I can't really compare it to some of the more modern real-time strategies, because this game is pretty far behind the curve when it comes to those. It also isn't as good as the second game, as that has a better control scheme overall. I guess I should bring up the cheat codes in this game. In the 90s, it was kind of exciting to see a video game that had these, and it was really cool to just pass these around at lunchtime or on the playground and that sort of thing. I'm not sure how I learned about the cheat codes for Warcraft. While I was looking these up, I found a bunch of them that I did not know about, so that was kind of fun. The cheat codes are Crown of Amber. They unlock a bunch of other cheat codes. This one was really bizarre. I didn't know it existed, but it's there. Then you have Orc X or Human X, and with that you would just enter in the level that you want to skip to, which is kind of fun. There's Ides of March, which takes you to the victory sequence without having to really deal with anything on the map. Yours Truly is another instant win on the mission. The differences between Ides of March and Yours Truly is Ides of March takes you to the very end, so like the actual victory, so the Orc end screen or the Human end screens. Pot of Gold, which is the one that I used the most while I was playing this, that one gives you 10,000 gold and 5,000 lumber. Then you have Eye of Newt, which researches all the spells, Iron Forge, which gives you all the weapon upgrades and armor upgrades, Sally Shears, which reveals all the map. So in this game, you don't have Fog of War, but you do have to explore the map to find everything. What Fog of War was after you explored an area, this fog would roll in to hide what was there. You'd still be able to see that section of the map, but you wouldn't be able to see what was going on. There can be only one that gives near invincibility to your units. I have no idea what that actually means because I've never really used it. I think it just ups your hit points to a ridiculous degree. And then the weird one that I have no idea why you would use is Crushing Defeat, that causes you to instantly lose the mission. I have no idea what's going on with that one. Oh, and there's Hurry Up Guys, which increases research and build speed. The way you would do these is you would press enter, and that would open up like a little message prompt that you have at the bottom of the screen, and then you just type the words in. So, yeah, that was pretty easy. Just type the words in, hit enter again, and that gives you whatever the cheat code was. It was really cool to see these back in the day, and it reminded me a lot of how some games like Doom would have something similar. And yeah, it was just kind of cool. I have no idea how I found out about some of them, but I do remember using them quite a bit when I was younger to try to get through this. And then when I was on the last battle for the humans, I started using Pot of Gold because I just wanted to get through the game to make it to the end screen. I think Warcraft looks pretty good for a game that was released in the 90s. The buildings all look unique to the two races, even though they don't function that way. And the units all kind of look differently. They have their own style, and everything looks pretty cool to see. There are only really 3 types of terrain in this, so you have kind of the swamp wasteland that you're seeing now on the screen, and then you have the prairie, and then you also have like mines that you go through. Those are, I mean, they look fine, but those are the sections that I don't think need to be in the game. The game does do an excellent job of making the player explore the map, especially when you need to figure out where the enemy base is or figure out where the choke points are so you can stop them from like sneaking up on you. The fire and explosion animations look awesome in this game. They really are the best part of all of this, just because they look really cool, almost like they're out of place a little bit, but they look really great for this time period. The spells aren't really all that great from a visual standpoint. Most of them are just summoning spells. The 2 attack spells are kind of cool. I do like the swirling cloud of poison that the warlocks will send out, but Rain of Fire isn't all that interesting to see. That's kind of where this game sort of falters. They don't have those visually appealing spells that you'll see in the second game. The graphics do look a little pixelated at times, but that was really just a product of when this game was made. I do prefer the graphics in the second game as they look a lot smoother, but this one has kind of that charm of being a little bit rough around the edges. Overall, Warcraft looks good, but it is still dated when you compare it to the other real-time strategy games. At the time, it was cool to see something like this, and the explosions and fire effects really stand out to me as being particularly good, especially for a game in the 90s. I have some weird memories of playing this game. One in particular, before I knew about the cheat codes, or maybe I didn't know about them at the time, but I was messing around with the game's data files, just clicking on the different files when I had the CD in to see what was there. And I managed to make it to the text file that controlled all of like the characters' stats, so like their hit points and their attacks and their range and that sort of thing. And I just started messing with those to see what was going on. And so I created a bunch. I messed with them to the point where the foot soldiers had like 2,000 hit points, like the same as a building. And they had an attack where they would be able to destroy a farm in one hit. And also their range was like half the map. So I just really broke the game in that way. That was really a lot of fun to just see that happening and then try to undo it so that I could actually play the game, because that traveled with that CD apparently. So everywhere I took that CD to play the game, it stayed like that. So you had this broken game that I messed with the data on. And I basically created a ROM hack of the game in some ways, but it was isolated to that CD. It was kind of cool to see. The other memory I have is just taking this game to the computer labs at my school. And I don't know if we installed it on the network at my school or not, but we spent a lot of time after school playing Warcraft as we were waiting for the bus. Or when we got there early in the morning, we had like an hour and a half before school started. It was a lot of fun to play this with my friends, especially since the CD I had was available for DOS only, and it wasn't like isolated to Windows, so we could install it on like Apple computers and that sort of thing. It was pretty cool to do that, especially in middle school when we were playing this. And there just weren't a lot of games that I could take over to my friend's house because he only had Mac computers and he didn't have a PC. This was a fun game to revisit, and I learned a lot about some of the things that I either had forgotten or didn't know. Like, I didn't know a lot of the cheat codes that were in this. I remembered Pot of Gold, and that was pretty much it. I might have remembered Eye of Newt, but I don't ever remember using that one. For this playthrough, I didn't. The only cheat code I used was Pot of Gold, which still makes the game unfair, but at least it makes some parts of it a little bit easier to get through, especially since there's no difficulty setting on this that I'm aware of. The Warcraft series kind of holds a special place in my heart for both good and bad. I loved the first two real-time strategy games, and then just never played the third one, and then I got way too involved in the MMO. I played just a stupid amount of World of Warcraft when I was in the Navy, but I just kind of got sick of it after I got out, because the people I played with started switching servers all the time and joining new guilds, and then things started to feel a little bit more like a job than they really should, and I just kind of stopped once I got out of the Navy and started going to college and had better things to do. The first game isn't the best. It has a lot of flaws to it, and sometimes it can be a little annoying. However, I've got a lot of memories of playing it, and it got me into this whole real-time strategy thing that I didn't really know I enjoyed. I remember playing Dune 2, but then I never played another strategy game that was like that. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.